And we're live. Welcome to the Counsel for Creators Legal Session. These sessions, which happen every month, cover all the important topics and answer all the questions that are relevant to creative businesses. My name is Chung. I'm one of the partners at Counsel for Creators, and with me, as always, is my partner, Jonathan. Hey, John.
Hey, everybody. Hey there. How you doing today?
How's it going, man?
Pretty good. Ready for another good session.
Yeah, I'm very excited. Very excited. Today, we're going to talk about social media, how to use it to build your brand, why it's important to use to engage with your audience, and then also how to use it within your own business too. There's a lot of insights into that. And to help us with that is the founder of Embello Agency, Liza Kors. Hi, Liza.
Hi Chung. Hi, Jonathan. Hi, everyone.
Thanks so much for joining us.
Of course. I'm super excited. Obviously, this is what I live and breathe, so I'm excited to talk about everything that I've learned over the years, and, you know, hopefully everyone will learn something new today.
Yeah, we're really excited to hear insights from someone like yourself who has the experience, the track record in this world. So hope you don't mind. Before we start, I wanted to tell the audience a little bit about yourself. So Liza started her career in the home industry, working for the International Home and Houseware Show, which, if you don't know, is the largest U.S. trade show in the country for homewares. And then after she relocated to California, she became the director of brand development for Design Campus, which is an online education platform and conference series for the interior design community. In her most recent role as the marketing communication manager at Barclay Butera, she was responsible for the company's digital brand development, as well as for overseeing marketing, social media, and events. Her passion for home and expert knowledge in marketing led her to start Embello, an influencer marketing platform that connects social media influencers with home and lifestyle brands. So as you can tell, a lot of expertise, track record of success. She's going to have a lot of great insights for you guys today. Before we start, I wanted to just do a few housekeeping items. Number one, this topic is, and the conversation is meant to be useful and informative for you all. But John and I are attorneys. We're not your attorneys, so nothing we say should constitute legal advice. That is our standard disclaimer. You'll hear that every single time.
Though.
Yes, we are your attorneys.
Yeah,
exactly.
I was going to say, unless we actually are your attorney,
unless you actually are.
This isn't the place.
Yeah, I just want to give that blanket disclaimer, though. And then, more importantly, I would say for the audience, we want this to be interactive. So you see the Q&A button. If you have questions for Liza or for us or any comments, feel free to click that button and drop in your questions or comments. And lastly, we're going to be covering a lot of great information. We might reference some links or information we think that might be useful for you. Don't worry about writing it down. We're going to drop it into the chat window, in addition to information about Liza, because we want you to learn more about her, about Embello, and all the great work that she's doing there. So without further ado, I want to turn it to Jonathan and Liza.
Okay. Hi, everybody. So yeah, this is a great session. Liza, thank you for coming. One of the things we really wanted to talk about, and I think you and I spoke about prior, was how creatives, whether that's artists or architects, photographers, anybody, can use social media to tell their stories. So I thought you'd be the perfect person to join us for that. And I think one of the first questions I had, just to sort of get things started, is tell us a little bit about what you do day to day and what sort of inspired you to start your company. What does it actually do?
Yeah, absolutely. So thank you, Chung. Thank you, Jonathan, for having me. And, you know, you gave a really great overview as to my background, but all of those things led to Embello, really. And, you know, my background is in marketing and social media, but specifically kind of in the home and design realm. But, you know, everything that I learned there, obviously taking it to the business, but really, you know, how Embello was founded was, of course, how a lot of businesses are founded, is finding either a gap or something missing within the industry. And for us, it was, you know, me seeing how influencer marketing had been incorporated in other industries like fashion and beauty, but home, and specifically the professional designer. So by that, I mean brands that are looking to work with designers, so the interior design community, and really introducing this concept of influencer marketing to this industry. And so now we've expanded to everything under home. So if you literally can look at your home, apartment, whatever, anything is fair game there. And we do direct to consumer and also work with designers. And actually, you know, one of the founding team members was Anne Sage, who is actually how we know each other. Her creative studio is my background here. And, you know, she's an incredibly well-known content creator, was one of the first original bloggers. And so a lot of her experience and knowledge on the influencer marketing and brand collaboration side is also what is the foundation of what is Embello.
Yeah, and it's really cool. I think what I like about your business, obviously, is it has a niche, right? There's a niche that it sort of fits into. And
Yeah.
I guess if you don't mind, I'm just going to ask a very, you know, obvious question, just to make sure that everybody kind of knows where we're coming from. What is influencer marketing? Like, sort of, how does that work?
Yes, and so we can also talk about, you know, what an actual influencer is, and I'll start with that. And so, you know, an influencer is essentially someone who has been able to build a following on social media. They've become really an authority and an expert in a topic. And so, you know, a lot of the creatives that are probably listening to right now are in a niche industry, and so being able to become an expert in that, growing your following on social, but also being able to really be able to give purchasing power decisions. So being able to affect that. And that is what brands are really, really interested in, because influencers are able to tell a brand story, are able to help with brand recognition, and are able to say, hey, purchase this product because I've done my research. I am the expert in this. And so you should listen to me. And people, one thing to know about influencers is that people follow them. You know, it's a proactive approach that you're doing to see how they're inspiring you on an everyday basis. And so you know that they're from time to time going to promote products for you. So it doesn't feel forced like a brand would, right? Like we know a brand is going to say, hey, buy my product because they want to make money. But with an influencer, it feels more organic and authentic. And that's why it's incredibly successful.
Yeah, and it seems to me like the main thing is the trust, that people who follow that influencer or know that influencer trust their judgment, trust that they're not going to be sold or shared something that isn't going to serve them, right?
Exactly. They're the expert, but they've also done their research, and they would never for a million years you know, go against and promote a product that isn't a fit for their brand. And it's something that I know we'll talk about authenticity, but if you're an influencer and you do put out something that isn't authentic to you, you'll see it in your metrics. People will know. And so yes, absolutely. Building that trust is incredibly important.
Yeah, and that seems to be the long-term thing that influencers will have is that trust. And as you're saying, I can imagine it's not worth sacrificing for one transaction.
Right, exactly.
So I guess, you know, one question, and I think this, again, kind of coming back to the basics here, I'm kind of wondering, why should businesses use social media to build their brand? So one of the elements of this conversation, and, you know, it might be obvious to a lot of people, but I'd like to hear your opinions and viewpoint on this, is why should people use social media to build their brand? What's special about it?
Yeah. Well, first of all, it's free.
Right.
It literally, there's you know, you don't have to pay to be on these platforms. And yes, you know, the investment you're going to make is in your time. And if you are doing, you know, paid ads or working with influencers, and of course, like creating content and things like that will be an investment that you have to make. But it is a platform for you to be able to promote yourself. And no one is going to talk about your products and your services unless you are. And so let me repeat that. No one is going to promote your products and services unless you are. You need to promote yourself. And sometimes creatives or people that own their own businesses, they might feel that it's a bit cocky or they don't want to talk about themselves, but they need to kind of get over that. There's a way to do it that feels authentic, again, is true to your brand. And a lot of, the creatives that might be listening, their career or what they do is their, persona. And so it should feel like a natural extension of who they are. And so that is the type of, content that, they should be putting out there. And so anyway, promote yourself. When you start building an audience and a following and building your brand, there's a lot of different avenues of business that can maybe possibly come up, different partnerships that can come about, collaborations. And I can give, some examples of people that I've seen that have been successful with that. But, you just never know what new avenues of business, and especially right now, I know that we talked about this a little bit before of just, with COVID and everything going on, back in 2008, 2009, when the economy, went crazy, there were no jobs, everyone was losing their jobs, is really when blogging started and was created. And a lot of content creators were born during that time. And now we're seeing a new iteration of that. And a lot of businesses, like you had mentioned, new creative businesses opening and using social to really be able to spread, that message. So we're all in the business to make money. And so I want new clients, you want new clients, everyone listening wants new clients. And so a perfect example that I have is, we work with a lot of interior designers, and interior designers have a unique situation, and they're creating content all the time. They're creating beautiful works like this behind me. And they're photographing it, right? And so content is key. That's what you need to keep creating and putting out there. And throughout that time, a lot of them have been able to build this loyal audience on social, and they're putting their designs on their Instagram, on their Pinterest, and it's now the first place that potential clients will go to.
Wow.
They'll find them, through Pinterest or Instagram, and reach out to them because they want them to design their homes. They want that Instagram worthy, house. Right. And so now it's funny, their website has become secondary, and the first thing they look at is their Instagram feed, and then they get DM'd, and then they have a new client. And so it's an incredible, obviously building your brand, but also actually getting clients and leads through social media, which is, what we all want.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing. I mean, and the things you're saying are really cool. I mean, it's so visual, and I think especially for creatives, a lot of people who I know are here, and the names that I recognize, who I see here, are people who have visual product, whether they're artists or, like you're saying, interior designers. It's a great way to sort of get that out there, and people see it. Like you're saying, they connect immediately with, okay, that's how I want my house to look. It's a great medium for that. And I just wanted to go back also to the point you made about promoting. It's you can be the best designer in the world, but if nobody knows about it, then who knows what's going to happen.
Talk about your
Maybe
project,
you get lucky.
You post it. So
post
it. And then and then it'll get shared, and then you never know who's going to see it,
Yeah, but I think it's also, it is kind of hard, like you're saying, people don't want to feel like they're being overly promotional. So maybe there is a balance there in some way.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny you bring that up because I like to use like the 80-20 rule, where it's like 80% of the content that you're putting out is either aspirational or tips or, education or, a reason why people want to follow you. And then, you're going to insert, obviously, we're all businesses of like, hey, this is what I do and this is how I can help you. So it's not so in your face, but it's important to put that in there because ultimately that's why you're putting out this content.
Yeah, I mean, definitely mixing it up. It's funny because you mentioned that and I was thinking of a supermarket that I follow on Instagram. And most of their posts are like, meat is on sale this week or fresh vegetables are on sale. So it's kind of funny. Like it's almost the opposite of what you're saying. Anyway, yeah, just thought I'd throw that out there.
That's funny.
Cool. So,
Guys,
just
I'm
sort
gonna,
of, yeah, hi there.
I'm gonna pause for just 1 second. We have a good question that's on the topic of promotion, right? So Mai Fung, thanks for joining us. She had a question about promoting safely and doing it in a way where you're not exposing yourself to being spam or to identity or trademark theft. So do you have any thoughts on that, Liza?
Yeah, I mean, sometimes when people are putting out like authentic or meaningful information or, for you're a law firm, there might be some tips that you are putting out. I mean, people and even designers do this where they want to make sure that their actual designs are recognized as theirs, and proper crediting is always important on social media. So you have to kind of be careful with that, whether you're sharing someone else's work, always giving the credit to the original person. But doing simple like watermarks, on the designs that you have can be a really simple way, or doing like your logo. We do, logoing in our social media. So that could be, I guess kind of a tip that I can provide in making sure that your content is appropriately shared, or that you're sharing, content appropriately too.
Yeah, there definitely are, I think not only, what's the word, sort of, things you want to be careful about ethically, but then even legally, I mean, obviously I have to go there a little bit and say that, if you put up a photograph, make sure it's protected, and vice versa. Don't, be really careful with what you post from others. But I think it's also a learning process. I think it's, something that I think it's going to happen at some point to everybody, where someone takes something you put and shares it. But I don't know if that's necessarily a reason not to share.
Yeah, and sometimes it's done by mistake. Like you don't even know who the original, and you credit the wrong person, or I've seen like the wrong photographer credited, and then they'll comment on it, and then the person usually always, fixes it, or someone, I mean, these days, someone's always going to call someone out.
So, people always see it. You can never be low.
It will get caught, and you won't get away with it. So don't even try it.
Yeah, don't even try it. And then, and then what's kind of cool is people are usually pretty nice about it too. So I think if someone does make a mistake, it's, or, either way, whether they use something of yours or you use something of theirs, usually just having a conversation, messaging and saying, hey, that's mine. Appreciate the credit.
Yep.
So, I mean, I guess, one kind of question, we've been talking sort of generally about, how we can use social media to promote ourselves and tell our stories. Are there any examples of creators who you feel like have a great social media presence and have been using it to grow their business?
Yes, I was really excited about this question because I definitely wanted to give just some relevant and comparable examples that I know there's a lot of different creators. There might be photographers, graphic designers, UX designers, listening. And so again, like my perspective is more on like the interior design community, but I think a lot of what is implemented there can be implemented in a lot of different businesses. And so Chung mentioned that I ran digital and social media for a celebrity interior designer. His name is Barclay Butera. So he's my first example. And the reason being is that he was able to really find a niche. And so he's very coastal. He's the blue and white guy, very like Newport Beach. He has his brand and everybody knows him for this brand. Very traditional, slightly older demographic. And so over the years, he's been able to build his brand, and now he's created, and this is what I mean by partnerships earlier, he has these licensing partnerships. And so essentially now he puts his name on art collections, rugs, flooring, bedding, furniture. I mean, you name it, Barclay Butera's name is on it, right? And
that's amazing.
yeah, and you know, being able to build your brand that way, having these brand collaborations, and now he's licensing his name out, he's clearly, you know, making residuals off of that, and it just kind of is now its own little cycle of the brand promoting him and him promoting the brand, and it's just a win-win, you know, for everybody. So that's one example of like partnerships, really finding your niche. Another example that a lot of maybe the people on this webinar might be familiar with is Kelly Worsler. She is an incredible interior designer. She's very avant-garde. She definitely has a look. She has like over 1 million followers on Instagram. She does, you know, massive hotels, also has a very dedicated look, a niche, and she's also been able to sort of build partnerships. She's done like partnerships with Barbie, which is like, you know, she's also into fashion, so like that, you know, makes a lot of sense. She actually just came out with a master class as well for interior design. And so just another example of, again, I mean, she's definitely a macro influencer, so she's been able to use her social to do some of these like bigger collaborations. But definitely, you know, putting a strategy in place. I know her team that, you know, works with her, and it's definitely strategic, you know, when things are posted next to what, very aspirational. So she's investing in this, and it's definitely something that, you know, she has, like it's mentioned, a team. And so there's a strategy, and there's obviously like an end result that she's looking for, and it's working. The other example is a friend of mine. His name is Ryan Garvin, and he's a photographer. And this one's kind of interesting because, you know, he's a photographer for interiors, and COVID hit, and you're not allowed to go into anybody's house, right?
Right.
And projects are canceled or postponed, and you know, it's been a difficult time for him, honestly, and maybe for a lot of creators that are listening to right now. And what's interesting is that over the years, and he's not even designing these spaces, he's photographing and making them come to life for editorial and for the designers' websites and for social media, but he's also posting them on his social media, and over the years has been able to build his own audience of home enthusiasts and editorial contacts and designers as well. And now brands are starting to reach out to him, even though he's not like the actual designer, wanting to collaborate with him. And he had called me the other day because he bought an Airstream, and he was like, listen, like, I bought this awesome Airstream. I'm looking to like really, you know, make it awesome. I'm obviously going to photograph it. Brands are already wanting to work with me. Like, what do I do? And so he's in the situation where he's already kind of built his brand. He's built his loyal following. He just needs to figure out the influencer side. And there's a whole strategy, you know, on that part. But I think that's a really good example of like, you just never really know where it's going to take you. And you could be, you know, a photographer and, you know, working on then your own projects, and then have collaborations that kind of come up with that. And it's a great source of income for him right now, especially since his other projects are, you know, placed on hold.
Yeah, it's kind of cool. I mean, I've even heard similar stories to what you're saying, where people kind of diversify their income or what it is they're doing. I mean, so if you're a photographer, obviously you can take pictures, but there's other things, other aspects of your work that people find valuable. So it's kind of cool to hear this story of how he's
Yeah.
sort of expanded his empire from one
Yeah.
thing to maybe many.
And the same thing, you know, can happen with architects and builders and landscape designers. I mean, you think about, you know, we're all consuming a lot more now. We're all at home,
Right.
and we're all on social and digital, and just it is what it is. And you know, we're cooking more, so maybe there's chefs that are not, you know, at the restaurants, but they're at home and they're
Yeah.
doing their recipes. And I've seen the chefs like collaborate with restaurants to like send things to people and doing like Zoom, you know, dates.
Yeah.
And then, you know, who knows, then they can collaborate with a food company or a cookware company. You know, I've seen yoga instructors, you know, obviously you can't go to the yoga studios, but it's all going virtual and they're doing yoga classes online. Sound baths. I mean, I'm expecting, so I'm like researching doulas, and like, I don't know anything about babies and birth. And, you know, I'm now following all of these new influencers, but they're experts, you know, in their
Right.
field. And it's just people that, because they're putting out really great content, people are gravitating towards them. And, you know, then I'm going to sign up for classes with them because they're awesome, you know, and
Yeah.
life coaches. I mean, there's a lot of different businesses that can really leverage social media. And what I will say about that is content is key. And so you have to constantly be, and this is the investment part, you know, and it has become a little easier. It doesn't need to be like this perfectly curated photo anymore. People want that real authenticity. And that's why like Instagram stories and IGTV and the reels and TikTok and all of that have become really popular because it is kind of fun and raw. It's not so,
Yeah.
you know, crazy edited.
Right.
But content is definitely really important because without it, you're not, you know, putting out information. And so that's kind of what I would say is probably the biggest investment that you need to make.
Yeah, and from what I've seen, what I've heard, and you're basically saying what I've always heard is it's consistency, you know, and with that consistency, a question I think a lot of people might have, and even I have, I mean, this isn't something that happens overnight, right? I mean, so if someone started today, it takes a while. Everybody you've mentioned, I'm sure, has been at it for a while, right?
Yes, and it's I will say it's even harder now. Not
Yeah,
to like,
it is.
not to unmotivate, but you know, there's a lot more content out there and a lot more creators than there were 10 years ago, 5 years ago, even like before COVID, right? And so,
Right.
so I will say it is harder. Even the influencers that have been doing this that I speak to, you know, they have to keep up with what's new, you know, the new platforms, the new features, like, oh my gosh, I have to do videos now. So it is harder, but the benefit is still, you know, there, and it does take time. It's not something that is going to happen overnight. It's kind of like the compound effect, right? Like you doing it, and then all of a sudden you will see, you know, some exponential growth. But really kind of investing in it. And there's a couple tips that I can kind of give, I know, at the end of just like, of what to kind of look out for and do.
Okay, that's awesome. Yeah, that'll be really good. And then, you know, kind of something as you were talking, I was wondering, is this something where, you know, if you're, trying to pursue this, is it something that you should do yourself, or is it something that you can outsource? I know there are probably people who are like, well, I don't really know how to do it. I don't have good ideas. How do you do that?
Yeah. And that was actually, one of my biggest tips that I give when I do kind of webinars and presentations, because, you know, the people that I do speak to, they're business owners. They own their own businesses. So for example, if they're an interior designer, I mean, they're spending time designing, going to projects, sourcing products, dealing with inventory and invoicing, and God knows everything else. And they're like, you want me to do what? Like, I have to now, you know, post every day and then engage every day and grow my following. And I don't have time for this, right?
Yeah.
And, you know, I say that it's like a little secret, but it's really not. And I'm like, you don't need to do it all on your own. And I know sometimes that's hard, especially for creators, because you want that to feel authentic and be you, and you feel like it needs to be you. And
Right.
listen, if you're an influencer slash blogger, content creator, and that's your full-time job, then yes, you're the one that's, you know, engaging, creating the content, scheduling, shooting, styling. That's your main source of income. So yes, you will be spending all of your time doing that. But if that's just part of your business to grow it, then hire someone to help you. And maybe it's to create the content. Maybe it's to help you find the right hashtags to use. Maybe it's to actually schedule out your content because there is a strategy, or like when to post, right? You can be the person that's like writing the captions and engaging with your people. But some of the other action items that it is a lot of work and is time consuming and is more of like the business. It's just like on a website, you know, you wouldn't go build your own website. You're going to hire someone to do that. It's still going to be you. You're going to tell them what to put on there, but you're going to hire, you know, help. And so you know, it's okay, but there's a balance. I know people, sometimes it's a little hard to let go.
It is.
And so it just kind of depends on your level of comfort, and but letting go is good, I promise.
Yeah, it definitely helps. Actually, it's funny that we're having this conversation now, and I didn't really intend this, but our last webinar that we did a month ago was actually about delegation. So I don't know if anyone here was at that, but our guest, Dina, she was really cool, and she talked a lot about you don't have to do everything. You know, as creatives, you feel like you have to have a hand in everything, right? So whether it's invoicing or social media, answering the phone. Some people feel like they have to do everything, and it's not true. You just have to be the mastermind and figure out a way to communicate that to somebody else.
I love that. I love her.
But it's hard. I mean, it's a hard thing to do. I mean, you know, anybody who's tried, I mean, I'm sure everybody's had an experience if you run a business where you give somebody a task and maybe your instructions weren't great, or they didn't understand or didn't have the skills, and it's a disaster. But, you know, it happens. It's par for the course, I guess you could say. But ultimately, I think, yeah, it's good. And especially if there's someone who knows the tools better. If they know, like you're saying, how to pick the right hashtags, how to get the timing right, get the scheduling right.
Right. Because it is strategic, and it is, you know, I mean, people now, not when I went to school, but like now there's like classes and things on this, right? So like careers are built around this, and major companies. And so, you know, you go to the experts, and it doesn't have to be a full-time thing, and start small, you know, and then grow from there.
Yeah, and that's kind of what we were also talking about with delegation, is you don't have to delegate a whole bunch of stuff. You can, you know, be like, let's do a little thing. Let's just have you, you know, answer emails or whatever, or answer DMs. It could be really easy. It doesn't need to be a big deal.
Yep, exactly.
Yeah, that's cool. Let me see. So,
guys,
you know,
I'm gonna pause for another great question. So a few people have been asking about different social media platforms. You know, there's Twitter, there's IG, there's Facebook, there's a whole bunch, right? So Liza, in your experience, let's maybe just focus on one. So Instagram, right? So do you have any general pros and cons, whether it's an appropriate platform to sell like high-end products, low-end products, if it's something that, you know, the average business can use to promote their business? What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, this is actually a really great question, because there are so many different platforms, and each platform has its own strategy and can be used different industries and even different roles. And so we always tell, people that we're working with is really focus on where your target customer is. And so understanding, Instagram is definitely skews slightly younger than Facebook. And so knowing that that's a different demographic that you're going to hit, knowing that now there's like all these, different features with video content. And so it's also thinking about what type of deliverables you're looking to really get out of it. Instagram is definitely more instant, instant gratification. So there's going to be the post. There's, stories are only live for 24 hours. The IGTVs now are a great way to incorporate, so it has a longer lifespan. And then the reels, as well. But for our industry, and maybe also for a lot of creatives here, Pinterest is also a really great platform. It's very, visual, but it also is it has a longer lifespan, one, but two, it's really great for conversions. And so, what influencers or content creators can do is create a blog, right, on their own site. They can then take that image and pin it to Pinterest, and then it lives there. And so anytime anyone's searching, and I'll just give an example because I literally just did this, like baby crib mattresses. I'm like, I don't know, I didn't even know, I thought it just came with the crib. So it does not. And so researching, and all of these like blogger articles, come up. And so I'm like, okay, so I start clicking, I start reading what the bloggers are recommending. Then I'm clicking on the links, obviously, that they have incorporated, that are tracked by the brand. And now I'm, on the brand sites, and now I'm part of their marketing cycle. So for us, Instagram is definitely one of, the main platform that we focus on. It's very visual. So again, like I mentioned, and so whether you're a graphic designer putting out, some of your graphic design work or interiors, or, I've even seen like poets, put like their poems in a beautiful font and post it, and it kind of go viral. So it's very, visual, but then also Pinterest as well is also very visual as well. I mentioned Facebook. Facebook is an interesting one. We don't use it as much, for our industry, but it really is a good way to do both kind of like ads and organic content. And obviously, I mean, Facebook has over 2 billion people on it. So it's one of the largest, like, networks that you can, reach. And so it's being able to kind of find those pockets and niches. I will mention LinkedIn is one platform I want to mention, just because you don't always think about it. You kind of have a profile on there and you're like, okay, it's like kind of like my resume. But it has really, especially with COVID, it's a great way to find leads. And it's also a really great way to share your own content, and then share content that is relevant to your industry. And so, for example, like when we do blogs, we will always, post it to our LinkedIn, and then, we share it, but then we also, anything that's related to maybe like social media or digital marketing, or the designer community, we'll share as well. And so building your network on LinkedIn, and then sharing kind of information is definitely one more on like the business kind of strategy, not so much like the aspirational visual, but more of like the business articles and things like that.
So, I mean, it almost seems like, based on what you're saying, would some people do well to sort of have almost like a combined strategy? Certain articles are going on LinkedIn, and maybe the visuals go on Instagram or Pinterest.
Yeah. And there's ways that you can recycle, because it's hard to create content, and you want that content to have a long lifespan. And so say you write a blog and you put it, there's graphics and visuals for LinkedIn. Maybe you post it 3 times during that week. There's different graphics for Instagram, because there's formatting and different, you put it on stories, you can make like a whole like swipe thing out of it. So there's ways to make your content last longer, and then also make it very strategic to whichever platform you're actually, focusing in on. And you don't have to do all of them. That's also the one thing that I like to say is like, pick the ones that are relevant to your industry, research who your target customer is and see if your customer is on the platforms. There's a ton of data that shows, you know, even age ranges, demographics, interest, you know, all of that you can research and find for each platform. I mean, even something like what you're doing here, you know, doing webinars and education, you know, being able to then promote that you're providing this content. I promoted it, you promoted it, you know, doing podcasts sometimes, you know, that could be an avenue, you know, for people. So there's a lot of different ways. So just finding what's right for your industry, your business, focusing, doing something, you know, it's better to do something really well and then kind of grow and expand from that.
Yeah, sort of have like a primary channel and then maybe have other ones that you're like, well, okay, I can try adding something on Twitter.
Yeah, right. Yeah, like we're not going to recommend Twitter, you know, for a lot of our clients. It's not really where the you know, like where their customers are. They're not going to go to Twitter to get like
right.
an aspirational, but Twitter is great for other people.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, just maybe just for sharing the link to something, but yeah, I mean, I get what you're saying. It's not really that sort of, that doesn't have that impact, you know, that Instagram or something else might have.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So, you know, I think one of the things you mentioned is the market, right? So I was talking about demographics for each of these platforms. One of the things that actually one of our clients asked us before the session was, how do you sort of, need to make sure I get this right, how do you figure out what your market is and how do you approach the right people? I mean, obviously you can't be all things to everybody. And, you know, I think it's how do you connect with those people who are going to most get value from what you're offering?
Yeah. You know, I would say, I mean, it really goes back to understanding who your target customer is. And so, you know, for us, it's digital marketers, right? So understanding where they're consuming content, where they're living, kind of breathing. That's why I mentioned LinkedIn, because a lot of them are, you know, on there consuming information on social media and digital marketing. And also, you know, we can't connect in person right now. And so connecting on platforms like that and growing your network in that way, for us, like that's incredibly important. You know, maybe your target customer is homeowners. And so kind of understanding, you know, where they're consuming information. Again, I mentioned Pinterest and Instagram being incredibly successful for those industries. So like business owners, homeowners, you know, it really kind of just doing some deep research as to who that target customer is. And then on just like the variety of different platforms. That's what I would say.
Yeah, that's good. Chung, do we have any other questions that we want to sort of put out there?
Yeah, so a couple that might fall under the bucket of like best practices, right? So one person asked about maximizing the impact of Instagram stories. I think they were alluding to they have a lot of followers, but they're not able to get a lot of people to watch their stories, or as many, I should say. And then someone else asked about, you know, whether or not there are specific times that work better for posting, and also, and you know, thereby would have like an impact on likes, conversions, that kind of stuff.
Yeah. So the first one regarding, you know, they've built their following and they're not getting as much engagement, it seems like, on their actual stories, which is very interesting because usually it's the opposite. Usually right now, people are really engaging with stories. People want to see that behind the scenes. And, you know, what I'm seeing is creators will post something on their main feed and then drive traffic to their story, and then even vice versa. So trying that, you know, being like promoting essentially your own content. But taking a look, I'm sure you have a business account, and so you're able to see and measure your stats. And so this was one of like the tips and kind of best practices I was going to mention is really making sure, you know, it's one thing that you're creating content and you're putting it out there, but really when it becomes a business strategy is when you're looking at your metrics. And so
Hmm.
on Instagram alone, or even whatever platforms you're using to like schedule out, you're able to find metrics as to, first of all, like what times and what days work best. We always recommend posting every day. It might not be a right fit for you, but as long as you're consistent. So
Right.
the the platforms want you to be consistent. The algorithms love when you're consistent.
That's cool.
And so they'll put your content out more in like the featured items, and they'll treat it better if they know that you're a consistent contributor, you know, to their platform. So whether it's one a day or one a week, just stay consistent. The platforms also can help you decide what days, you know, are, I'm sorry, what times are better. So they'll recommend, but it can be different for different industries. And so making sure that you know, follow maybe what they say, but also take like looking at your own metrics and being like, oh, you know, Saturday mornings aren't really that great. Maybe we shouldn't do, you know, Saturday mornings.
Right.
So taking a look at what people are actually reacting to. And a lot of it's like learning by doing, just like with any business, right? So you're going to learn, and if something doesn't work, then you're going to take a look at it and be like, why didn't this post do so well? Do they not like me talking into the camera? Do they not like, you know, I don't know, my pet videos? Like, what
Hmm.
it, you know, what is it? And then, you know, take a look at that, and then, you know, do iterations of what you're doing. And a lot of it's like testing and finding out what's good. And if something does really well, like, you know, a funny video that you did and everyone's reacting to it, then do more of that, right? And so
Yeah.
a lot of it's like, yeah, learning by doing, but looking at your metrics, you're able to see the engagements of the posts. And for stories, yeah, I would say trying to help either your posts, you know, driving it to your stories, or um, I don't know if maybe they're just like still photography, maybe try doing video, maybe try, I mean, stories are so awesome now that you can do so many incredible
Yeah.
things with it, with the fonts and the music and graphics and making it kind of cool. And so just like testing, you know, testing it out.
Yeah, yeah, and that's something we've talked about actually before is how it's really that experimenting and testing, like, and just like you said, you're learning by doing. So do something, if people like it, do more. If people don't like it, maybe do less. You know, and
Yeah.
so yeah, and that's what's kind of cool about social media is you get that feedback and you have access to that data,
And
that
maybe if
metrics.
they're not liking the stories and they're liking your posts more, then do more posts, right? And
Yeah,
then leverage that, or see if, you know, a reel or, you know, an IGTV, like it would be better, and kind of go from there.
yeah. So yeah, and that's really, I mean, that's all really good stuff, and yeah, I mean, really just learning by doing. Um, so I guess, you know, we're going to wrap it up in a few minutes. So I just wanted to ask you if, you know, as we're sort of ending this, what are maybe three tips or, you know, a few tips, let's just say, for people who want to get started with this or have already started and want to sort of take it to the next level?
Yes. Well, I know we covered a lot of really great info. So some of the things we might have already covered, but definitely one, like building a strategy. And so
Hmm.
just like when you start your business, you do a branding exercise, you know, take the time to do an exercise on your social. What's what's your identity? What is the information that you want to be put out there? How do you want, you know, your audience to view you? You know, get on those platforms that can help you schedule, and really put together, are you posting, you know, once a day? What does that look like? Researching the hashtags, you know, in your industry, because that's going to help you grow. And so, yeah, again, back to the consistency, the platforms really love that. And so just building that strategy, having that maybe somewhere in writing so that you can kind of go back to it, that will really, really help. One of the other things was, what I was going to say was basically hiring help and not doing everything on your own. And so I think, we definitely covered that part. Focusing on the platforms that matter most to you. We talked about that, making sure that, you're not doing everything kind of, okay, you're doing a few really, really, really good. That's where you're going to see, the results. So don't try to be everything for everyone, and don't try to do everything, for your business. Definitely like measuring success is important. That's something that people, and this is where you can hire someone, because maybe sometimes like you don't even know what you're looking at, and you're like, I don't know how to measure. I just want to be the person that writes the captions, and that's fine. So, but treating this as a business, measuring your results, that's how you're going to get better. One thing that we didn't talk about was engagement. And I always talk about how incredibly important this is, because you could be creating the most beautiful content and putting together this awesome video that you think like millions of people are going to look at, right? It's literally going to go viral. But if you are not engaging with your community, if you're not giving love, you're not going to get love. And so, and that is one of the things that it does take time, and you have to engage. And this is where you can, again, target your industry audience, customer base. Take a proactive approach. And if you're looking to be part of this kind of tribe, go right on how awesome, their graphic design for that wedding was, or, that awesome website that they designed and how, it inspired you. And, maybe even share, with proper credit and all of that. But that is one way to get the algorithms to like work in your favor of like, hey, this person is interested in this topic. I'm going to connect them. They want to connect you with the right people. So I'm going to connect them with more like-minded people. But it's also a way to really organically grow your following. And so if people are commenting, on your posts, like make sure you're commenting back, give the love, share the love. It's the best way to grow organically. So that's what I would say.
That's awesome. Yeah, and that's a really good one to sort of end with, because that's what it is. You're just trying to give as much as you can on these platforms.
It's a social platform. You're supposed to be like, you're mingling on social, you're building relationships, you're networking, you're doing all of it. And with the end result of growing your brand and then getting, customers out of it, because you have become this expert in your industry.
That's awesome.
That's amazing. Liza, we want to be respectful of your time. Thank you so much for joining us and for giving us so much great information about this. I can tell that we could probably talk about this for another few hours, but definitely want to be respectful of your time. I know you have other things to do. I have a question for you. So if people want to learn more about you or Embello, how do they get in touch? And also, do you have anything you want to promote?
Well, they can find us at embello.com. My email is Liza, Laiza, @embello.com. Any questions, if you want to just learn more about us, or any follow-up questions, or want to collaborate, or just want to say hi, I'm always here and open. So thank you guys so much. I had a lot of fun. I hope everyone else out there enjoyed too.
Yeah, thank you so much for joining us. We appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks everyone. Just really quick, we're going to do this again next month, so stay tuned for the notice on that. And also, if you want to learn more about Liza, get in touch with us, and we'll be happy to share any more information that we have. If you want to learn more about us, Counsel for Creators, and our Creators Legal Session, which happens every month, as I mentioned, definitely check us out on our website at counselforcreators.com. There, you'll also be able to find out more information about our legal subscription service. It's $95 a month, and with that, you get a ton of benefits, access to lawyers, document review, and as a bonus, you get access to the replays of these sessions. So please check us out. Get in touch if you have any questions. But thank you so much for joining us. Thank you, Jonathan. Thank you, Liza.
You're the coolest attorneys I know. Who wouldn't want to work with you?
That's going to be on my LinkedIn profile. Thank you.
Yeah, with a quotation. That's awesome.
Bye.
All right, appreciate it. Thank you, everybody.
All right, everyone. Take care.